What if some of history's greatest treasures aren't in museums or private collections, but vanished without a trace, taking their secrets with them? Across centuries, explorers and scholars have chased whispers of legendary artifacts that slipped through time's fingers. These aren't just lost objects, they're missing pieces of the human story, mysteries that rewrite what we know about ancient civilizations, forgotten wars, and cultural triumphs. Picture this, a golden library filled with wisdom from the ancient world, swallowed by fire, a jewel-encrusted crown that disappeared from a king's tomb overnight. Even entire cities, their treasures hidden so well that no map can lead us back to them. Every vanished artifact holds more than material value. It represents a question mark in our collective memory. The hunt for these relics has driven adventurers to cross oceans, decode cryptic maps, and risk everything in pursuit of the impossible. Some were stolen in plain sight. Others vanished under circumstances so strange, they feel like riddles meant to taunt future generations. And the deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. Their absence haunts us because it reminds us how fragile history truly is. One wrong turn, one moment of chaos, and entire chapters of human achievement can dissolve into dust or vanish into shadow. That's why today we're setting off on a journey through 30 of history's most fascinating disappearances. From the Ark of the Covenant to Cleopatra's elusive tomb, these aren't just stories of missing gold or gemstones, they're invitations to wonder. What would these artifacts reveal if we found them? Could they shatter myths, rewrite textbooks, or even unlock technologies we thought were impossible? As we explore each one, you'll notice a pattern. The greatest losses often surround the most pivotal moments in history, as if destiny itself wanted to keep some mysteries just out of reach. So ready to step into the unknown, let's begin where every great treasure hunt starts, with a legend waiting to be proven true. The first artifact on our journey is the one that sparked legends, wars, and expeditions for millennia: the Ark of the Covenant. Described in the Hebrew Bible as a gold-covered wooden chest, it wasn't just a container. It was a divine symbol, said to hold the original stone tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. But here's the mystery. After the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem in 586 BCE, the Ark vanished from recorded history. No conquest, no inventory, no trace. Just silence. Some believe it was hidden deep beneath Temple Mount, sealed away in secret chambers to protect it from invaders. Others claim it was smuggled out of Jerusalem, possibly to Ethiopia, where the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum insists they safeguard it to this day, though no outsider has ever been allowed to see it. Then there are the wilder theories that Knights Templars spirited it away during the Crusades, or that it rests in some forgotten European chapel, waiting to be rediscovered. What makes the Ark more than just a lost relic is its power, both literal and symbolic. Ancient texts describe it as a weapon, capable of leveling mountains and striking down armies. But beyond that, its recovery would rewrite history. For scholars, it could confirm or challenge biblical accounts. For believers, it would be a spiritual earthquake. And for treasure hunters, well, it's the ultimate prize, one that's eluded everyone from medieval knights to modern archaeologists. The question isn't just where it went. It's whether it was meant to stay lost. Now let's turn to a treasure so dazzling, it was called the eighth wonder of the world, the Amber Room. Picture an entire chamber lined with 6 tons of meticulously carved amber panels, framed in gold leaf and studded with jewels, reflecting endlessly in floor-to-ceiling mirrors. Originally crafted in Prussia in the early 1700s, this masterpiece was gifted to Russia's Peter the Great as a diplomatic peace offering. For 2 centuries, it glittered in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, a symbol of both artistic genius and royal power. But in 1941, the Nazis invaded and dismantled it in a matter of days. Packed into crates, the Amber Room vanished into the fog of war. Eyewitnesses claimed it was last seen in Königsberg Castle, But when the Allies bombed the city, now modern-day Kaliningrad, the trail went cold. Some believe it was destroyed in the flames, others insist it was smuggled out, hidden in a salt mine, or even stashed aboard a ship that later sank in the Baltic. Treasure hunters have chased leads from Bavaria to South America, following cryptic notes and dying confessions, but no one's ever found a single original panel. What makes this loss so haunting isn't just its material worth, it's the irreplaceable artistry. Each amber piece was hand-fitted like a puzzle, with colors ranging from honey gold to deep cherry, reacting to candlelight as if alive. Modern craftsmen spent 24 years and $11 million recreating it, but they admit it's impossible to truly replicate the 18th century techniques. The original's disappearance isn't just a theft, it's a rift in history, a ghostly void where a masterpiece should be. And the most frustrating part, unlike artifacts lost to time, we know exactly who took it. The Nazis kept meticulous records until they didn't. That final gap in the paperwork might as well be a locked door, with the Amber Room's fate whispering from just beyond the keyhole. Could it still be out there, a sealed bunker, a sunken wreck, or even a private collection hiding in plain sight? The hunt continues, fueled by the tantalizing idea that one of history's most opulent treasures might still be waiting, not crumbled to dust but perfectly preserved just out of reach. Imagine walking into a building that held the collective knowledge of the ancient world, 500,000 scrolls, painstakingly gathered from Greece, Egypt, India, and beyond. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a storehouse of texts, it was the beating heart of intellectual life for centuries, a place where scholars debated astronomy, dissected human anatomy, and calculated the Earth's circumference with startling accuracy. Founded in the 3rd century BCE under Ptolemaic rule, it stood as a monument to human curiosity, drawing thinkers like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes through its doors. But today, not a single scroll from its original collection survives. The question isn't just how it was destroyed, it's whether humanity lost more than we'll ever comprehend. The library's downfall is shrouded in as much mystery as its contents. Some blame Julius Caesar, who allegedly set fire to his own ships during a siege in 48 BCE, the flames spreading to the harbor district and consuming part of the library. Others point to Christian mobs in the 4th century CE, tearing down pagan institutions under Emperor Theodosius's edicts. Then there's the claim that Muslim forces demolished it during their 7th century conquest, though many historians dismiss this as later propaganda. The truth, the library likely suffered death by 1,000 cuts, a slow erosion through neglect, scattered vandalism, and the gradual decay of a society that stopped valuing what it held. What vanished with those scrolls is almost too vast to grasp. Works by Sappho, the legendary poet, might have filled entire shelves. Treatises on medicine from the Indus Valley, now lost to time. Even the plays of Sophocles, only 7 of his estimated 123 survive. The library was a time capsule of civilizations that spoke to one another across borders, and its destruction didn't just erase books, it severed a dialogue that had thrived for generations. The cruelest irony, some texts may still exist. Scholars speculate that a handful of scrolls were smuggled to Constantinople or hidden in desert monasteries waiting to be found. Others suggest the library's vast knowledge wasn't truly lost, just scattered, absorbed into other collections under different names. But until a discovery proves otherwise, we're left staring into the void, wondering how much further we might have come if Alexandria's flame had never flickered out. The library's ghost lingers in every unanswered question, every historical gap, a reminder that knowledge, once extinguished, doesn't always leave ashes behind. Sometimes it leaves silence. In the summer of 1907, one of the most audacious thefts in history unfolded not in a bank vault or a museum, but in the very heart of British rule in Ireland. The Irish crown jewels, no ordinary trinkets, were a dazzling set of ceremonial regalia, including a diamond-studded star and an ornate badge, symbols of the Order of St. Patrick. Valued at millions in today's currency, they were kept under what should have been impenetrable security in Dublin Castle's Bedford Tower. But on the morning of July 6th, staff made a horrifying discovery. The safe had been picked clean, the jewels gone without a trace. What followed wasn't just a robbery, it was a scandal that exposed deep fractures in the colonial establishment and spiraled into a mystery that still taunts investigators today. The theft reeked of an inside job. The jewels were stored in a library safe, accessible only to a handful of high-ranking officials, yet no forced entry was found. Suspicion immediately fell on the castle's own staff, particularly Sir Arthur Vickers, the Ulster King of Arms, who had reportedly been careless with the keys, even loaning them to acquaintances. But the deeper investigators dug, the murkier it became. Whispers pointed to a web of intrigue involving high society figures, from knights to politicians, some with ties to underground nationalist groups. Then came the wildest twist, rumors that occultists had stolen the jewels for their supposed mystical properties, a theory fueled by the involvement of a mysterious figure known as the Dublin Pimpernel. The fallout was explosive. Vickers was publicly shamed and dismissed, though he maintained his innocence until his death, ironically, during the Irish War of Independence, when he was assassinated by the IRA. The case was buried under layers of political tension, with British authorities accused of covering up the truth to avoid embarrassment. Even King Edward VII demanded answers, only to be met with silence. But beyond the whodunit, the jewels held profound meaning for Ireland. Crafted from historic gems, including stones said to have been worn by Queen Charlotte, they weren't just symbols of British rule, they were relics of a complex Irish identity intertwined with colonialism. Their disappearance became a metaphor for a nation grappling with its own sovereignty. Today, theories abound. Some believe the jewels were dismantled and sold piecemeal on the black market. Others claim they're hidden in a Dublin basement or even tucked away in a private British collection. The most haunting possibility, that they were secretly returned, melted down, their gems repurposed, leaving no trail. Without a single lead in over a century, the Irish crown jewels remain a ghostly absence, a glittering what-if at the crossroads of history and heist. And the greatest irony, the theft that was meant to humiliate the crown may have unwittingly given Ireland back a piece of itself, stolen not from the people but from their occupiers. One thing's certain, if these jewels ever resurface, they'll carry more than monetary value. They'll reopen a century-old wound and perhaps rewrite a chapter of history that's been waiting to be told. Among the world's lost treasures, few carry the weight of a blade forged not just to kill, but to embody the soul of a warrior. The Honjo Masamune isn't merely a sword, it's a masterpiece of steel and spirit, crafted in the 13th century by Japan's greatest swordsmith, Goro Nudo Masamune. His name became synonymous with perfection. Each katana he produced blending lethal precision with breathtaking artistry. But the Honjo Masamune stood above them all, passed down through generations of shoguns, its curved blade witnessing the rise and fall of dynasties. Then, in 1945, it vanished into thin air, not in battle, but in the bureaucratic chaos of post-war surrender. When Japan yielded to Allied forces, authorities ordered all swords confiscated. The Honjo Masamune, surrendered by the Tokugawa family along with 14 other precious blades, was handed to an American sergeant in Tokyo. Paperwork logged its receipt. And then nothing, no inventory, no auction record, no smelting manifest, just silence. Some believe it was lost in the scramble of occupation, melted down with thousands of lesser swords for scrap metal, its destiny reduced to a factory furnace. Others whisper it was smuggled out by a collector who recognized its worth, whisked away to a vault where only the wealthiest eyes could admire it. But why does this disappearance haunt historians so deeply? For starters, Masamune's technique remains unmatched. His swords were forged with a secret grain folding method, creating blades so sharp and resilient they became the stuff of legend. The Honjo Masamune was his crowning achievement, its steel said to shimmer with a pattern like wood grain, a visual testament to its layers of folded metal. Its balance was so perfect, samurai swore it felt like an extension of their own arm. Even its name carries history, earned when General Honjo Shigenaga survived a battle despite the sword being shattered, a tale that only added to its mystique. Today, the loss cuts deeper than nostalgia. This katana was a living artifact of Bushido, the samurai code proof of an era when craftsmanship and honor were inseparable. Its absence leaves a hole in Japan's cultural memory, a missing link between modern technology and ancient artistry. Treasure hunters have chased leads from Tokyo to Texas, following rumors of a GI who kept it as a war trophy or a private buyer who displays it behind glass, unaware of its identity. Perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't just that it's gone, but that we might never know how it disappeared. Unlike relics lost to time, this blade vanished in an age of paperwork and photographs, yet left no trail. It's a ghost hiding in plain sight, a reminder that even in the modern world, some treasures slip through the cracks, taking their secrets with them. And so the Honjo Masamune remains both a physical absence and a symbolic wound, a severed thread to Japan's warrior past waiting to be reforged if only someone could find the pieces. The Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Andes with dreams of mountains made of gold. And for once, the legends weren't exaggerating. When Francisco Pizarro captured the Inca Emperor Atahualpa in 1532, he demanded a ransom that would become the stuff of nightmare and myth, a room filled once with gold and twice with silver, floor to ceiling. The Inca delivered, melting down sacred statues, temple ornaments, even golden garden replicas of their sacred plants. But as the Spanish hauled away history's richest ransom, something extraordinary happened. The rest of the empire's gold enough to dwarf Atahualpa's ransom vanished overnight. This wasn't just theft in reverse. The Inca, masters of engineering and secrecy, orchestrated one of history's greatest disappearing acts. Entire processions of llamas laden with gold disappeared into the cloud forests. Temples were stripped bare, their treasures whisked away to hidden citadels rumored to lie beyond Spanish maps. Some say the gold was sunk into sacred lakes like Titicaca or buried in labyrinthine tunnels beneath Cusco. Others whisper of a last refuge called Paititi, a city of gold hidden so deep in the Amazon that not even satellite imagery can spot it. Fast forward to the modern era, and the hunt has only grown more intense. In 2001, explorers claimed to find a cavern near Danganates National Park packed with gold, only for the site to vanish behind landslides before it could be verified. Then there's Lake Guatavita in Colombia, drained multiple times since the 1500s in pursuit of the legendary El Dorado ritual gold, yet still guarding its secrets. Even high-tech scans can't penetrate the dense jungle where the Inca's best engineers hid their work. But here's the twist: rediscovering this gold wouldn't just make someone rich, it could rewrite Andean history. Each artifact was a coded message. Golden maize plants weren't mere decorations, they encoded agricultural knowledge. Discs depicting constellations held astronomical data. If found, these objects could reveal how the Inca managed feats like Machu Picchu's construction or their vast road system without written records. The cruel irony. The Spanish melted almost everything they captured into ingots, erasing irreplaceable cultural data. What remains hidden might be the last intact records of a civilization that saw gold not as currency, but as the sweat of the sun god in Tai. Every expedition that fails brings us closer to accepting a bitter truth. Some treasures aren't meant to be found, or perhaps they're waiting for the right moment when we're ready to understand their true worth, not in weight but in wisdom. In the autumn of 1941, as war engulfed the Pacific, a wooden crate holding one of the most important keys to human evolution began a desperate journey and then vanished. The Peking Man fossils discovered in the limestone caves of Zhaokudian near Beijing weren't just bones. They were 500,000 years of history, the remains of Homo erectus individuals who walked the earth long before modern humans existed. These skulls and skeletons proved that early humans had spread as far as East Asia, rewriting the story of our origins. But when Japanese forces advanced on Beijing, scientists packed the fossils into 2 footlockers, hoping to smuggle them to safety. The last confirmed sighting, a train to the port city of Qinhuangdao. After that, silence. Theories about their fate range from tragic to conspiratorial. Some believe the crates were bombed en route, their priceless contents reduced to dust. Others claim American Marines intercepted them, only to lose track during the chaos of Pearl Harbor. Then there's the persistent rumor that Soviet troops seized them as war booty, hiding them in a secret Moscow archive. Even the Japanese military's own records offer no answers, just a glaring gap where evidence should be. For paleontologists, it's a gut-wrenching loss. These fossils weren't just rare, they were irreplaceable. Unlike dinosaur bones, which number in the thousands, the Peking Man specimens represented a tiny handful of Homo erectus remains from this period in Asia. What makes their disappearance so devastating is what they could have told us. Modern technology could have extracted DNA, revealing migration patterns or even interbreeding with other hominin species. The skull's unique features, thick brow ridges, flattened faces, might have shown how environment shaped evolution. Instead, we're left with plaster casts and notes, shadows of the real thing. Yet the mystery holds a strange hope. In 2005, a man claimed his father, a WW2 Marine, had hidden the fossils in a U.S. basement. In 2012, Chinese researchers scoured a suspected sunken ship off Taiwan. Neither lead panned out, but the fact that people still search proves something. The Peking Man fossils aren't just lost artifacts. They're a question etched in bone, a reminder that our past is fragile and that some secrets refuse to stay buried forever. Some treasures shine so brightly they leave a void when they vanish, and few absences glitter as hauntingly as the Florentine diamond. Weighing a staggering 137 carats, this lemon-yellow jewel wasn't just another gem. It was a dynastic trophy, passed like a golden baton between Europe's most powerful families. Cut into an irregular 9-sided form, its facets caught light like liquid fire, an effect so striking that Renaissance lapidaries whispered it had been enchanted. Originally mined in India, it surfaced in 15th century Medici inventories, then slipped into Habsburg hands when Austria's Archduke Francis V married into the family. For centuries, it crowned imperial regalia, its very hue symbolizing the sun's divine right to rule. Then, in 1918, as the Habsburg Empire crumbled, the diamond evaporated from history's vaults. Theories about its fate split like light through a prism. One camp insists it was smuggled to South America by exiled royals, sold discreetly to fund their lavish but penniless exile. Auction records from Buenos Aires in the 1920s mention a yellow diamond of exceptional size, but the trail dies there. Others argue Nazi looters seized it during their pillaging of Vienna's treasures, a hypothesis bolstered by a 1945 U.S. military report noting a large yellow stone recovered in Switzerland, later lost in bureaucratic limbo. The darkest theory that it was dismantled. A stone this distinctive could never surface on the open market without recognition, leading some gemologists to suspect it was recut into smaller, anonymous diamonds, its identity sacrificed for cash. What makes the Florentine's loss so cutting is its scientific rarity. Most yellow diamonds owe their color to nitrogen impurities, but this one's golden hue was laced with traces of hydrogen, a molecular fingerprint few gems share. Modern geologists could have traced its origins to a specific Indian mine, revealing long-lost trade routes. Its unique cut, a relic of pre-industrial craftsmanship, held secrets about how Renaissance artisans manipulated light without computers. Even its flaws told a story, microscopic inclusions that mapped its journey through volcanic pipes to royal coffers. Today, the hunt feels personal for gem hunters. In 2007, a European collector offered $20 million for verifiable information leading to its recovery. 7 years later, a dealer in Dubai claimed to have examined a matching stone in a private collection, but the owner refused testing. The Florentine's ghost lingers in these near misses, teasing us with the possibility that it's still out there, not lost, just hidden, waiting for the right light to reveal itself again. Until then, its absence is a lesson. Even the hardest substances on Earth aren't immune to the soft erosions of time, war, and human greed. Somewhere, perhaps behind bulletproof glass or buried in a velvet-lined vault, the Florentine diamond winks knowingly, keeping its secrets as closely guarded as the empires that once cherished it. For the Romanov dynasty, luxury wasn't just about wealth, it was a language of power written in gold, enamel, and gemstones, and nothing spoke louder than the imperial Fabergé eggs. Between 1885 and 1916, master jeweler Peter Carl Fabergé crafted 50 of these exquisite treasures for the Tsars, each a Russian nesting doll of opulence and surprise. Hidden inside gold filigreed shells were miniature portraits, jeweled birds, even working clocks. All engineered with such precision, they made Swiss watchmakers gasp. Today, 43 survive in museums and private collections, but 7, they've slipped through history's fingers, vanishing into revolution, war, and the shadowy world of ultra-wealthy collectors. The trail goes cold in 1917 when Bolshevik revolutionaries stormed the Romanov palaces. Some eggs were catalogued and moved to the Kremlin armory. Others were sold off by the cash-strapped Soviet government to foreign buyers, including a dozen purchased by American tycoon Armand Hammer. But the missing 7. Their fates fracture into competing theories. One egg, the nécessaire, was last seen in 1922 at a London auction, described as containing diamond-studded grooming tools. Another, the Royal Danish, might have been dismantled for its emeralds after failing to sell at Christie's in 1964. Then there's the Alexander Roman III commemorative, rumored to sit in a Middle Eastern billionaire's vault, its identity concealed by non-disclosure agreements. The hunt for these eggs borders on obsession. In 2012, a scrap metal dealer bought a golden egg at a Midwest flea market for $14,000, thinking it was an elaborate trinket. Research revealed it was the missing 3rd imperial egg, worth $33 million. That lucky strike fuels treasure hunters' dreams, because if one egg surfaced in such humble circumstances, why not others? Some scour old European estate sales, hoping to spot Fabergé's signature guilloche enamel work under layers of dust. Others dig through Soviet archives, tracing shipping manifests that might reveal which eggs were smuggled out before Stalin's regime could melt them down. But here's the twist: finding a missing egg wouldn't just delight collectors. These weren't mere baubles. Each held fragments of Romanov life, lockets with strands of royal hair, tiny paintings of palace pets, even a working model of the Trans-Siberian Railway. They're time capsules of a gilded age, frozen moments before an empire collapsed. One recovered egg, the Rothschild, shattered auction records not just for its craftsmanship, but because its hidden mechanized hen pecking at a ruby pendant forced historians to rethink Fabergé's technical prowess. The question isn't just whether the missing 7 still exist, it's whether we'd recognize them if we saw them. Revolutionaries pried gems from their settings. Black market dealers may have altered their designs to avoid detection. And yet, the allure persists because these eggs are more than art. They're ghosts of a world that burned, still whispering their secrets to those patient enough to listen. Few legends have fueled treasure hunts like the lost fortune of the Knights Templar. This medieval order, originally formed to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land, amassed staggering wealth through banking and land holdings only to vanish overnight when King Philip IV of France turned on them in 1307. Accused of heresy and dissolved by papal decree, the Templars were hunted down, their leaders burned at the stake. But here's the mystery: when authorities seized their Paris temple, the vaults were nearly empty. Where did it all go? The answer might lie in cryptic clues they left behind, sparking a chase that's lasted 7 centuries. Stories of hidden Templar gold take us from French countryside churches to remote Canadian islands. In Rennes-le-Château, a tiny village in southern France, rumors swirl about a 19th century priest who allegedly discovered Templar treasure beneath his church, funding sudden, inexplicable renovations. Conspiracy theorists tie this to everything from the Holy Grail to Merovingian bloodlines, though historians dismiss most claims as fantasy. Then there's Oak Island, Nova Scotia, where excavators have spent 2 centuries drilling into the Money Pit, a booby-trapped shaft supposedly guarding Templar riches. Artifacts like centuries-old parchment and Spanish coins tease at credibility, but the main hoard remains stubbornly out of reach. What makes the Templar treasure more than just another lost stash is its potential historical weight. Their records, if found, could reveal shadow networks of medieval finance or even early contact between Europe and the Americas. Some speculate they smuggled relics like the Ark of the Covenant out of Jerusalem before its fall. Others believe their true treasure was knowledge heresies that threatened the church, cartographic secrets, or advanced nautical maps. The most compelling clue might be in Portugal, where surviving Templars reinvented themselves as the Order of Christ. At their maritime headquarters in Toma, explorers like Vasco da Gama plotted routes using maps allegedly inherited from the Order. Could their lost wealth have funded the Age of Discovery, or does it still lie buried, encoded in chapel frescoes or cipher stones, waiting for someone to crack the code? Modern hunters armed with ground-penetrating radar and archival algorithms keep searching, driven by the idea that the Templars didn't just hide treasure, they left a trail. Whether it leads to gold or something far stranger, their legacy endures not in what we've found, but in what we're still willing to believe. When Bedouin shepherds stumbled upon clay jars in Qumran's caves in 1946, they unknowingly touched off one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, the Dead Sea Scrolls. These 2,000-year-old manuscripts contain the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, along with hymns, community rules, and apocalyptic texts that reshaped our understanding of early Judaism and the roots of Christianity. But here's the unsettling truth: not all the fragments made it to scholars' hands. An untold number of these priceless texts remain missing, scattered across black markets, private collections, or worse, crumbling to dust in forgotten corners of war-torn regions. The scroll's journey from caves to controversy is as tangled as the ancient script itself. After initial discoveries, the caves became a free-for-all, with Bedouin tribesmen, archaeologists, and antiquities dealers racing to strip the site. Many fragments changed hands in backroom deals, some smuggled out of Jordan during political upheavals. In the 1960s, a batch reportedly surfaced in the United States, sold by a dealer who later admitted he couldn't trace their origins. Then there's the shadowy post-2000 market, where newly surfaced fragments, some possibly looted from unexcavated caves, fetch millions from anonymous buyers. Why does the absence of these fragments matter so deeply? Because every scrap could hold a missing link in religious history. The recovered scrolls already proved that biblical texts weren't static. Variations in wording revealed how interpretations evolved. A single missing fragment might clarify debates about the Messiah's identity in Jewish thought or early Christian beliefs. Some scholars suspect lost texts could reference figures like Jesus or John the Baptist, placing them in contexts we've never considered. The most haunting gaps are the blank spots in the scroll's own story. Infrared imaging has detected ghostly, faded ink on some fragments texts that might never be read if the pieces they belong to stay lost. Others may have been destroyed unintentionally. Early handlers used cellophane tape to preserve brittle fragments, a well-meaning mistake that hastened their decay. Yet hope flickers in unexpected places. In 2016, scholars confirmed that a charred lump found in an Israeli museum storage was actually a never-before-seen Leviticus scroll. In 2020, digital reconstruction revealed text on fragments once thought blank. These breakthroughs suggest that even now, fragments mislabeled or forgotten in archives could rewrite history if they're found before time erases them for good. The Dead Sea Scrolls' lost pieces aren't just artifacts, they're voices from the desert still waiting to speak. Among the shattered symbols of the French monarchy, few carried the weight of the scepter of Dagobert, a golden staff so ancient its origins blurred into legend. Crafted in the 7th century for the Merovingian king Dagobert I, it wasn't just a ceremonial object. It was a physical thread linking France's revolutionary present to its quasi-mythical past. Topped with a globe and cross, its surface etched with intricate filigree, the scepter had been passed down through coronations for over 1,000 years, a silent witness to the rise and fall of dynasties. Yet when revolutionaries stormed the Abbey of St. Denis in 1793, looting the royal tombs and melting crowns for their gold, the scepter vanished without a decree, without a record, as if it had never existed at all. The mystery surrounding its fate splits historians into two camps. The first believes it met the same fiery end as so many royal treasures, dismantled and fed into the furnaces of the new republic to fund wars against monarchist Europe. Revolutionary records list dozens of artifacts reduced to bullion, but the scepter's name is conspicuously absent, leaving room for doubt. The second camp whispers of a daring rescue. Some royalist sympathizers within the chaos of the revolution were known to smuggle relics to safety, hiding them in country chateaux or even smuggling them abroad. A 1920s rumor claimed the scepter resurfaced briefly in a private London auction, described as a Frankish ceremonial staff, before disappearing again into anonymity. But why does this loss resonate so deeply? Beyond its gold and gemstones, the scepter of Dagobert was a living artifact of France's origin story. The Merovingians ruled when France wasn't yet France, when Gaul was a patchwork of tribes and Latin echoes. The scepter's survival into the revolution had been a miracle in itself, surviving Viking raids, medieval wars, and the 100 Years' conflict. Its destruction or disappearance wasn't just the loss of an object. It was the severing of a tangible connection to a time before borders, before nations, when kings were half-priests and rulership was sacred. Modern searches have turned up frustrating dead ends. X-rays of the foundations at St. Denis revealed no hidden vaults. Metal detectors swept suspected royalist estates in Normandy, finding only 18th century cutlery. Yet the scepter's ghost lingers in French culture, popping up in novels and conspiracy theories alike. Some even claim it holds esoteric power, that its true value wasn't in gold, but in some older knowledge etched into its shaft, a secret worth hiding from both revolutionaries and kings. Perhaps the most poignant theory is that it's still waiting not in a collector's vault, but in plain sight. Many medieval artifacts were repurposed during the revolution, their gems pried out but their cores hidden in plain view as everyday objects. Could the scepter of Dagobert, stripped of its ornaments, be leaning in some attic mistaken for a curtain rod? Or was it truly melted down, its essence recast as coins that funded the very revolution that sought to erase it? The answer, like the scepter itself, remains just out of reach, a glint of gold in history's shadows, daring us to look closer. Deep in the Peruvian Amazon, where the canopy swallows sunlight and rivers twist like serpents, legends whisper of a city that should not exist, Paititi. Unlike the stone terraces of Machu Picchu, this lost Inca refuge wasn't built on mountain peaks but hidden in the jungle's green shadows, a final stronghold where gold-laden processions fled the Spanish conquest. Chroniclers wrote of a place so rich, its temples were sheathed in gold, its gardens planted with metallic crops to honor the sun god Inti. Yet for centuries, Paititi remained just that, a story, a mirage shimmering beyond the reach of maps. Until, piece by piece, the jungle began yielding clues. The hunt for Paititi isn't just about treasure. It's a forensic puzzle, stitching together fragments from conquistador diaries, indigenous oral histories, and satellite imagery. Spanish priest Andrés López left the most tantalizing account in 1600, describing a sprawling metropolis called the Great Paititi, where Inca royalty ruled in exile. But his coordinates were deliberately vague, a protective lie to keep looters away. Fast forward to the 21st century, and technology finally offered new tools. In 2006, Italian archaeologist Mario Poglia discovered a 17th century Jesuit manuscript in the Vatican archives, pinpointing Paititi near a pyramidal mountain in Peru's remote Madre de Dios region. Around the same time, satellite photos revealed unnatural geometric shapes beneath the dense foliage, possible terraces or plazas. Expeditions plunged into the jungle, braving venomous snakes and hostile tribes. In 2008, a Peruvian-Japanese team claimed to find stone structures matching Inca masonry near the Mamiria River. 4 years later, French explorer Thierry Jamin reported a massive rectangular complex hidden near the Lakotari mountain, dubbing it the Square of the Honan. But skepticism followed. The jungle is a master of deception. What looks like a man-made wall might be eroded sandstone. A straight line could be a fallen tree. Without incontrovertible proof, Paititi stayed just out of reach, a tantalizing maybe on the edge of discovery. What makes this search so electrifying isn't just the promise of gold, it's the potential to rewrite Inca history. If Paititi exists, it could hold answers to the empire's final days. Were these ruins a desperate hideout or a planned retreat, a backup capital designed to preserve Inca culture beyond Spanish reach? The city's architecture might reveal how the Inca adapted their engineering to the rainforest, a stark contrast to their mountain citadels. And then there's the darker possibility that Paititi's treasure wasn't just ceremonial. Some scholars speculate it housed the empire's sacred archives, knotted quipu records or metal plates inscribed with forbidden knowledge, all lost to the jungle's humidity. The greatest obstacle isn't distance but time. Modern deforestation threatens to expose or destroy what centuries of secrecy preserved. Satellite LiDAR scans now peer through foliage, revealing ancient roads that snake toward uncharted valleys. Yet looters follow close behind, their metal detectors buzzing over burial sites. Paititi's fate hangs in the balance between discovery and desecration. Will it be a scholar's breakthrough or a treasure hunter's trophy? One thing's certain: if the jungle ever surrenders this secret, it won't just be a city we find. It'll be a ghost of the Inca's last defiance, golden and silent, waiting to tell its story. On the night of April 10, 1934, a single slice of one of Europe's most revered artworks was carefully cut from its frame, not by vandals, but by someone who knew exactly what they were taking. The Ghent altarpiece, a 15-foot-tall masterpiece painted by Jan van Eyck in 1432, had survived wars, iconoclastic riots, and even Napoleon's art raids. But its lower left panel, depicting a group of figures known as the Just Judges, met a far stranger fate. In its place, the thieves left a typed note with chilling precision, taken from Germany by the Treaty of Versailles. The message was a red herring, referencing the post-World War I reparations that forced Germany to return looted art. But the real mystery was just beginning, because over 80 years later, despite confessions, deathbed letters, and a trail of cryptic clues, the panel remains missing, leaving a ghostly void in one of history's most studied paintings. The theft plays out like a detective novel gone wrong. Suspects range from an eccentric Belgian stockbroker named Arsène Godetier, who cryptically confessed on his deathbed in 1934, whispering that only he knew the panel's location, but died before revealing it. Then there's the Nazi connection. Hermann Goering, Hitler's second-in-command, obsessively hunted the Ghent altarpiece during World War II, seizing its remaining panels and storing them in a salt mine. Yet post-war inventories listed every piece except the Just Judges, fueling theories that it had already been hidden or destroyed years earlier. Even the church wasn't above suspicion. Some historians allege a Catholic conspiracy to conceal the panels' heretical symbolism, as Van Eyck's judges included portraits of contemporary figures who may have challenged church authority. What makes this theft linger in art history's imagination isn't just the brazenness, it's what the panel might reveal. Infrared scans of the altarpiece's surviving sections show underdrawings that contradict the final image, proof that Van Eyck changed his compositions mid-process. The missing panel could hold similar secrets, perhaps even hidden portraits or symbolic details lost to time. Its absence also disrupts the artwork's narrative flow. The judges were meant to gaze toward the central panel's divine lamb, creating a visual dialogue about earthly and heavenly justice. Without them, the altarpiece feels unnervingly incomplete, like a sentence cut short. Hopes for recovery flicker sporadically. In 1935, a lawyer received a ransom demand for 1 million Belgian francs, but the exchange never happened. In 2013, an anonymous tip claimed the panel was buried near a tennis club in Ghent. Excavations found nothing. The most tantalizing lead, a copy of the panel, painted in the 1930s by conservator Jeff van der Vecken, contains microscopic anomalies. Some experts believe he sneakily embedded clues about the original's location in his replica, a theory bolstered by his own cryptic diary entries, the cruelest twist. This isn't just about art. The Just Judges represents a collision point of nationalism, war, and ego. Its theft mirrored Europe's fracture between the world wars, and its absence now feels like a metaphor, how even the most enduring symbols of justice and order can vanish overnight. Until someone cracks Godotier's code or stumbles upon a long-forgotten vault, Van Eyck's judges remain frozen in time, eternally riding just beyond the frame, taunting us with what we've lost and what we still might find. Few objects embody a nation's anguish like a lost crown, especially when that crown belonged to the monarch who first united the people under a single rule. The crown of Bolesław the Brave, commissioned in the year 1025, wasn't just Poland's first royal diadem. It was a physical manifestation of sovereignty, forged when the newly Christianized kingdom needed symbols as much as swords. Crafted from gold and set with gemstones, its design echoed Byzantine influences, a deliberate nod to Poland's place among Europe's rising powers. Yet by the 13th century, this priceless emblem of nationhood had vanished, swallowed by the chaos of Mongol invasions and dynastic wars. Was it melted down by invaders, hidden by loyalists, or smuggled away to await a day of restoration? The answer could rewrite Poland's medieval story. The crown's disappearance is cloaked in layers of intrigue. Some chronicles point to the Mongol sack of Krakow in 1241, when treasures were looted or destroyed in the burning of Wall Cathedral. Others believe it was spirited away decades earlier during a succession crisis, concealed by nobles who refused to let it fall into rival hands. The most tantalizing theory involves a secret network of clergy and knights who smuggled it to safety, perhaps burying it beneath monastery walls or sealing it within a remote chapel's altar. In the 19th century, as Poland fought to retain its identity under foreign partition, romantic poets spun legends of the crown waiting in darkness, whispering to patriots in their dreams. Modern searches have focused on Wall Cathedral's labyrinthine crypts, where ground-penetrating radar has revealed hollow spaces behind ancient masonry. But the hunt extends beyond Poland's borders. In 2014, Hungarian archaeologists examined a crown in Budapest's National Museum, speculating it might be Bolesław's, only to prove it was a later imitation. Then there's the rumor of a gilded reliquary in a private Lithuanian collection, its provenance suspiciously vague. What makes this search so charged isn't just the crown's material value, it's the void it left in Poland's collective memory. Bolesław's coronation marked the moment Poland stepped onto Europe's stage, and his crown became a touchstone for every subsequent monarch. Losing it wasn't just a theft, it was a severing of continuity, a break in the chain linking modern Poland to its founding. Even the country's surviving regalia, remade in the 14th century, carry a hint of longing, an attempt to recapture what was lost. Today, the crown's ghost lingers in unexpected places. When Polish astronauts carried a replica into space in 2022, it wasn't just a tribute, it was a declaration that some symbols outlast borders, wars, and even time. Whether the original still exists is almost beside the point. The fact that we still search proves its power endures, not in gold or gems, but in the unshakable idea that a nation's soul can't truly be stolen, only hidden, waiting to be found. Imagine a library where over 100 masterpieces have been wiped from the shelves, and the lost works aren't just books but the very foundations of Western drama. That's the tragedy of Sophocles, the ancient Greek playwright whose surviving works are mere fragments of his genius. Of the 123 plays he wrote, only 7 complete texts endure staggering losses, like The Gathering of the Aeaeans and Tereus, stories that once moved Athenian audiences to tears and triumph. These weren't just entertainment, they were moral compasses shaping Greek thought on fate, justice, and the human condition. Yet today, their absence leaves a void in classical studies so profound. Scholars still comb through desert sands and medieval manuscripts, hoping for a scrap of dialogue that could rewrite literary history. The mystery of their disappearance spans centuries. Some plays likely perished when Rome's Library of Alexandria burned, taking with it the only known copies. Others may have been lost to time's slow decay, papyrus crumbling in damp monasteries, or recycled as scrap parchment. But here's the tantalizing possibility. Sophocles' missing works might not be gone, just hidden. Egyptian burial sites have yielded Greek texts before, preserved by the desert's dry air. In 1889, archaeologists discovered a trove of papyri in Oxyrhynchus, including fragments of lost Sophocles plays like Ichnuti, proving that even shattered pieces can resurface. Could entire scripts still lie buried beneath Nile silt or sealed in untouched tombs, waiting to be unrolled? Even more intriguing are the Vatican's locked archives, rumored to hold unreleased classical texts among their miles of shelves. In 2018, infrared scanning revealed previously invisible writing on a recycled medieval manuscript, a technique that could uncover more. The challenge. Many archives restrict access, leaving scholars to wonder if a complete Sophoclean tragedy sits unrecognized in a vault, mislabeled as a liturgical text or bound into another book. Recovering even one of these plays would be seismic. Sophocles' surviving works, like Oedipus Rex and Antigone, are cornerstones of theater, exploring themes that feel startlingly modern. His lost plays ventured even darker territory. The Danaids reportedly grappled with forced marriage, while Niobe delved into a mother's grief so intense it turned her to stone. Finding them wouldn't just add to his canon, it could upend our understanding of Greek society, revealing how audiences processed war, gender, and power through these stories. The cruelest twist, we know these plays existed because ancient critics raved about them. Aristotle praised Oeneus as a masterpiece of character. Plutarch quoted lines from Phineus that don't survive elsewhere. Each fragment is a breadcrumb, hinting at banquets of language we'll never taste. Yet the hunt continues, driven by the belief that somewhere beneath a monastery floor, in a forgotten crate, Sophocles' voice still echoes, patiently waiting for the light to find it again. The golden menorah looted from Jerusalem's Second Temple wasn't just a candelabra. It was a 7-branched beacon of Jewish identity, snatched away by Roman soldiers in 70 CE and paraded through Rome as a trophy of conquest. The scene was immortalized on the Arch of Titus, where carved figures hoist the menorah aloft. its details so precise historians can trace its almond-shaped cups and tiered base. But here's the haunting twist. After that triumphant procession, the physical menorah vanishes from history. Did it end up in a Roman emperor's vault, lost in a barbarian raid, or deliberately hidden by those who refused to let its light be extinguished? 2,000 years later, its absence still burns as brightly as its symbolism. Theories about its fate split like oil in the menorah's own lamps. Some scholars argue it was melted down with other temple treasures during Rome's financial crises, repurposed into coins that funded imperial wars. Others believe it survived for centuries in the Palatine Hills treasure chambers, only to disappear during the Visigothic sack of Rome in 410. Then there's the persistent legend that it was smuggled back to Judea by sympathetic guards or hidden beneath the Tiber River's muddy banks, awaiting the day Jerusalem's temple would rise again. Even the Vatican has faced speculation. Could it be sealed in their storied archives, a secret too volatile to reveal? But the menorah's loss transcends archaeology. For the Jewish diaspora, it became a paradox, a symbol of both destruction and resilience. Medieval manuscripts depicted it alongside the mythical 10 lost tribes, suggesting its return would herald messianic redemption. When Israel became a nation in 1948, the menorah was chosen as its emblem, not just as a historical reference, but as a declaration that survival itself is a kind of victory. Modern technology has fueled fresh searches. Ground-penetrating radar has scanned the Tiber's sediment for metallic anomalies. Historians scour Byzantine records for mentions of Hebrew gold in Constantinople's churches. Yet the most compelling clue might lie closer to home, the Arch of Titus itself. Recent spectral imaging revealed traces of yellow ochre on the menorah relief, proof it was once painted to mimic gold. This small detail suggests the carving wasn't just propaganda. It was a portrait meticulous enough to imply the real menorah stood nearby when the arch was built. Whether it's dust in a Roman furnace or waiting in some sunken vault, the menorah's legacy endures precisely because it's lost. Its absence keeps the story alive, a reminder that some treasures aren't measured in gold, but in the unbroken chain of memory they inspire. To find it would be to touch the tangible proof of survival, but to keep searching is its own kind of faith. When Neil Armstrong took humanity's first steps on the moon in 1969, he didn't just plant a flag, he collected rocks. Over 6 Apollo missions, astronauts brought back 842 pounds of lunar material, each sample more precious than diamonds. These weren't just souvenirs, they were time capsules from another world, holding clues to the solar system's birth. Yet somehow, in the decades since, chunks of the moon have slipped through NASA fingers, vanishing into the shadows of theft, bureaucracy, and sheer carelessness. The scandal begins with goodwill gone wrong. After Apollo 11, the US government gifted moon rocks to 135 nations and all 50 states as symbols of global unity. But these weren't ordinary presents. Each tiny fragment, encased in acrylic and mounted with a flag, represented millions in scientific value. By the 1990s, audits revealed over half were unaccounted for. Some disappeared during coups, like Honduras's sample, lost in a presidential palace fire. Others were outright stolen, like Malta's, swiped from a museum and held for ransom. Then there's the baffling case of Cyprus's moon rock, last seen in a Swiss vault before vanishing without a trace. But the most shocking loss happened closer to home. In 2002, a former NASA intern named Joseph Guthaints led an undercover sting to recover a missing lunar sample. His target, a fraudulent seller offering a moon rock on the black market. The catch, it was real, one of the original Apollo-era gifts hawked for $5 million by a man who'd found it in his deceased brother's storage unit. This wasn't an isolated case. In 2011, a woman tried selling a moon rock at a garage sale for $1,700, unaware she was holding a piece of history worth millions. NASA investigators later traced it to a batch gifted to Louisiana in the 70s, somehow discarded like old holiday decorations. Why do these losses sting so deeply? Because moon rocks aren't just rare, they're irreplaceable. Unlike earthly minerals, they contain no water or atmospheric erosion, preserving a record of cosmic bombardment over 4 billion years. Modern scans could reveal new isotopes or organic compounds, clues to how life's building blocks reached our planet. But with over 80% of the original Apollo samples still unstudied, locked in Houston's lunar vault, every missing gram represents data we might never recover. The hunt continues in places you'd least expect. A safe in West Virginia's State Museum, empty, its moon rock loaned to a politician and never returned. A filing cabinet in Alaska, mysteriously absent after an office move. Even NASA admits some samples were accidentally destroyed, ground into dust during routine testing. Yet hope flickers in odd corners. In 2018, a Dutch museum discovered their prized moon rock was just petrified wood, but the publicity spurred private collectors to come forward with genuine fragments. Perhaps the greatest irony is that for all our high-tech space probes, the biggest threat to lunar science isn't radiation or vacuum, it's human negligence. These rocks survived eons in the void, only to disappear in storage closets and flea markets. Each one still missing is a silent rebuke, a reminder that even the universe's gifts can vanish when we forget their worth. Few artistic disappearances sting as sharply as the vanishing of Leonardo da Vinci's The Battle of Anghiari, a mural so revolutionary, contemporaries called it the School of the World. Commissioned in 1504 to celebrate Florence's victory over Milan, this wasn't just another fresco. It was Leonardo's boldest experiment in capturing motion and chaos, a whirl of horses and warriors locked in combat so vivid, sketches alone inspired generations of artists. For decades, it dominated Florence's Palazzo Vecchio, a public masterpiece until the mid-16th century, when architect Giorgio Vasari renovated the hall and the mural vanished without explanation. Did he destroy it, hide it, or is it still there, waiting behind a layer of plaster to rewrite art history? The search hinges on Vasari's own hands. Known for preserving Renaissance art, he'd unlikely obliterate a Leonardo. Instead, scholars noticed something odd in his replacement fresco, the Battle of Marciano. Infrared scans revealed a cryptic flag bearing the words Circa Trova, seek and you shall find. Was this a breadcrumb? In 2012, teams drilled micro-cameras behind Vasari's work, discovering pigments and a hidden cavity consistent with Leonardo's techniques. The paint matched his unique blend of oils and wax, a radical departure from traditional fresco methods that may have doomed the original Leonardo's experimental paints allegedly began melting within years, causing the mural to deteriorate. But here's the electrifying possibility. Vasari might have built a false wall to preserve the crumbling masterpiece, shielding it from humidity and political upheaval. If true, recovering the Battle of Anghiari would be akin to unearthing a second Last Supper. Its composition, known from Peter Paul Rubens's 17th century copy, shows warriors in frenzied motion, a snapshot of Leonardo's obsession with anatomy and physics. The original could reveal his preparatory sketches beneath the paint, or even hidden layers altered mid-creation. The stakes transcend art. This mural marked a turning point in Leonardo's career, bridging his scientific studies and artistic genius. His notebooks described dissecting horses to perfect their musculature for this very work. Finding it could expose how he translated scalpel-level precision into brushstrokes. Yet the ethical dilemma is just as gripping. Should we tear through Vasari's fresco to reach it, or let Leonardo's lost battle remain a ghost, inspiring us precisely because it's just out of reach? For now, the Palazzo Vecchio guards its secret, but every scrape of plaster whispers Circa Trova. The hunt isn't over, it's paused like a breath held between heartbeats. When Ferdinand Magellan's crew anchored off Patagonia's rugged coast in 1520, they didn't just encounter harsh winds, they claimed to meet giants. Antonio Pigafetta, the expedition's chronicler, wrote of natives so tall the Europeans barely reached their waists. Later explorers doubled down on these accounts. Sir Francis Drake's logs from 1578 described Patagonians towering over 7 feet, while Dutch sailor Sebald de Weert reported battling giants who dwarfed his men. For centuries, these stories fueled legends of a lost race of titans until the supposed proof, their skeletal remains, vanished without a trace. Today, the missing bones of Patagonia's giants aren't just a historical footnote. They're a collision of colonial myth-making, misidentified fossils, and whispers of institutional cover-ups. The simplest explanation, sheer exaggeration. European explorers standing barely 5 feet tall might have perceived the Tehuelche people, some reaching 6.5 feet due to genetic adaptation, as monstrously large. Add language barriers and the era's love of sensational travelogues, and you've got a recipe for myth inflation. Yet some accounts mention uncovering colossal skeletons, with 19th-century naturalists like Florentino Emchino reporting femur bones, twice the length of a modern man's. These specimens allegedly went to European museums, but modern catalogues show no such entries. Were they mislabeled, destroyed, or deliberately hidden? Enter the megafauna theory. Patagonia was once home to giant ground sloths and elephantine glyptodonts, whose massive femurs could easily be mistaken for humanoid remains. Paleontologists note that Victorian-era collectors often misassembled fossils, creating chimerical skeletons that fed into racist pseudoscience about primitive giants. But here's the twist. Recent genetic studies confirm some indigenous Patagonians carried DNA variants linked to exceptional height, lending credence to at least some accounts. The darkest theory suggests intentional suppression. In the 1950s, a Chilean anthropologist claimed the Catholic Church confiscated and destroyed giant remains to quash heretical narratives challenging biblical human origins. Others point to natural history museums quietly shelving controversial finds to avoid fueling Nazi-era eugenics theories. Without physical evidence, we're left weighing colonial fantasies against tantalizing gaps in the record. A reminder that sometimes the most persistent legends aren't just tall tales, but shadows of truths we've yet to fully measure. Deep beneath the winding mountains of southwestern Poland, a legend pulses like a wartime radio transmission, the ghost train of Walbrzych. According to local lore, in the final, desperate days of World War II, the Nazis loaded an armored train with stolen gold, jewels, and priceless art, then sent it hurtling into a labyrinth of tunnels beneath the Owl Mountains. The tracks were said to end abruptly, sealed by dynamite blasts meant to bury the treasure and its secrets forever. For decades, the story simmered as campfire talk among locals until 2015, when 2 men claimed ground-penetrating radar had detected something massive. A 300-foot-long train-shaped anomaly buried 60 feet below ground. Overnight, the quiet valley became a global media circus with treasure hunters, historians, and even the Polish military descending on the site. The evidence seemed tantalizing. The radar images showed a distinct linear structure with metallic density matching train cars. Witnesses came forward with accounts of elderly SS officers whispering about Project Reese, a Nazi initiative to build an underground network so vast it could hide entire factories. But skeptics quickly poked holes. Geologists noted the region's natural iron deposits could mimic metal signatures. Archivists found no Nazi rail logs matching the alleged cargo. And most damning, the tunnels in question were part of a known mining complex, their layout well documented with no space for a hidden spur line. Yet the allure persists because of what we know the Nazis did hide. In salt mines across Germany, Allied troops discovered troves of stolen art, gold bars melted down from Jewish victims' dental work, even crates of foreign currency, all meticulously catalogued by Hitler's regime. If even a fraction of Walbazic's rumored cargo exists, it could hold looted cultural treasures still sought by descendants today. The train's myth also taps into darker truths, how the Third Reich funneled wealth through Swiss banks, or how fleeing officers smuggled valuables via submarines to South America. The most poignant twist, the search itself became a kind of archaeological theater. Drill cores pulled from the site in 2016 revealed nothing. No tracks, no gold, just glacial sediment. Yet amateur diggers still scour the hills with shovels and hope, drawn less by facts than by the story's enduring power. Sometimes a train isn't just a train. It's a shadow of unresolved history, a relic of war's chaotic aftermath, where truth and myth blur in the tunnels of memory. Until someone uncovers irrefutable proof, the gold train remains both a cautionary tale and a siren song, proof that the greatest treasures aren't always what's buried, but what we're willing to believe lies just beyond our grasp. Few losses in intellectual history echo as profoundly as the missing works of Aristotle, a man whose surviving text shaped Western philosophy, yet whose vanished writings might have reshaped it entirely. Of the estimated 200 treatises he penned, only 31 remain, a mere fraction of the insights this ancient polymath poured onto papyrus. Gone are his famed dialogues, literary masterpieces so eloquent that Cicero compared them to rivers of gold. Lost are his studies on comedy, his histories of philosophy, his explorations of the soul that even his student Theophrastus called revolutionary. What survives today are largely dry lecture notes, essential, yes, but shadows of the vibrant prose that once captivated Athens. The question isn't just what Aristotle wrote, it's whether those vanished texts still exist, carbonized in Herculaneum's volcanic ash or sealed in some Macedonian king's forgotten tomb. The most tantalizing possibility lies in the Villa of the Papyri, a Roman library buried by Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. Among its 1,800 charred scrolls, many still unopened scholars have identified fragments of Epicurean philosophy. But here's the spark of hope. X-ray fluorescence imaging has detected Greek writing styles matching Aristotle's era in still-sealed scrolls. Could one hold his lost dialogue on poets, or the Protrepticus, his rallying cry for philosophical life? The challenge is technological. These scrolls are so delicate they crumble at a touch, their ink invisible beneath layers of carbonized papyrus. Recent advancements in particle accelerators and AI pattern recognition offer hope, but progress is painstaking, a race against time and decay. Then there's the Macedonian angle. Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great, and ancient sources claim he sent the conqueror annotated copies of his works. If Alexander's lost tomb is ever found, perhaps in the mysterious mound complex at Amphipolis, it might contain a royal cache of Aristotelian scrolls preserved in a ruler's death chamber. Archaeologists have uncovered Macedonian tombs with intact frescoes and gold, but no major library yet. The stakes transcend academic curiosity. Aristotle's lost works on rhetoric could redefine how we understand persuasion's ethics. His dialogues on the divine might bridge gaps between his published metaphysics and Plato's mysticism. Even his lists of Olympic victors, mentioned by ancient historians, could recalibrate our chronology of ancient Greece. These aren't just missing books, they're missing keys to 2,000 years of thought. Perhaps the cruelest twist is knowing how close we've come. In 86 BCE, Roman general Sulla looted Aristotle's personal library from Athens, only for it to scatter in Rome's civil wars. A single crate saved then, a single scroll spared from Vesuvius's wrath, could alter our intellectual DNA. Until then, we're left with echoes, quotes in later commentators, hints in footnotes, a phantom library whispering from the past, urging us to keep digging, keep reading, keep hoping that somewhere Aristotle's lost words still wait. As the Second Boer War reached its bloody climax in 1902, a fortune in gold and diamonds slipped through British fingers, vanishing so completely it became South Africa's greatest treasure myth. The so-called Kruger millions, named after fleeing Transvaal President Paul Kruger, weren't just state funds. They were the lifeblood of a dying regime, rumored to include gold bars stripped from Pretoria's mint, uncut diamonds from Kimberley mines, and even private fortunes of Boer generals. Estimates placed the hoard's modern value at nearly $500 million. Yet when Kruger fled to Europe aboard a Dutch warship, his luggage held only personal effects. The money had simply evaporated. Theories about its fate split along ideological lines. British intelligence insisted Boer commandos smuggled the gold into Mozambique, using it to fund guerrilla resistance long after the war's official end. Afrikaner oral history tells a different tale of a midnight operation to bury the treasure in the Waterberg Mountains, marked by cryptic symbols only a select few could decipher. Then there's the darker twist that the gold never left Pretoria. In 1925, construction workers excavating a train station allegedly found a rusted strongbox filled with century-old coins. Before authorities could secure the site, looters picked it clean, leaving no proof beyond whispered family legends. Modern hunters armed with metal detectors and ground-penetrating radar have turned the outback into a checkerboard of dig sites. In 2018, a farmer near Ermelo blasted open a hillside after his grandfather's diary described the president's cargo, hidden beneath a distinctive Koppe rock formation. He found nothing but an old rifle cartridge. More promising was a 2022 sonar scan of the Vaal River, revealing metallic masses consistent with gold bars, until divers recovered only a corroded wagon axle. The South African government, wary of illegal excavations, now requires permits for any serious search, but that hasn't stopped weekend prospectors from poring over century-old land deeds in hopes of spotting a telltale discrepancy. What elevates this hunt beyond mere greed is its cultural weight. For Afrikaners, the Kruger millions symbolize resistance against colonial oppression. Finding them would be vindication, proof their ancestors outsmarted the empire. For Black South Africans, the treasure carries more complicated echoes. Some historians argue the gold was originally mined by exploited workers, making its recovery a chance to reclaim stolen labor. Even scientists have joined the fray, with geochemists proposing to test suspect gold bars for telltale traces of Transvaal ore, the most haunting possibility. That the treasure was spent long ago, war memoirs describe Boer agents buying weapons from German dealers in Dar es Salaam, possibly using melted-down Kruger gold. If true, the millions might still exist not in chests, but as bullets fired a century past, their metal scattered across battlefields no one thinks to dig up. Or perhaps it waits under some farmer's field, so close to the surface that every plow season risks uncovering it. Either way, the legend endures because it's more than gold. It's the ghost of a nation's defiant last stand, buried but not forgotten, whispering of what might have been. For over 2,000 years, one name has haunted explorers and scholars alike: Atlantis. Plato first described this island empire in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, painting a picture of an advanced civilization with towering concentric rings of water and land, wielding technology beyond Athens' wildest dreams. According to him, Atlantis stood beyond the Pillars of Hercules, its people corrupted by greed before the gods sank their kingdom beneath the sea in a single cataclysmic day and night. But here's the catch: Plato called it a moral fable, a cautionary tale about hubris. So why do we still scour the ocean floor for remnants of a city that might never have existed? The answer lies in the tantalizing details. Plato did provide features so precise they feel like blueprints. He wrote of a central palace surrounded by alternating rings of land and water, linked by bridges and tunnels, with walls clad in exotic metals. He described hot and cold springs, a vast canal network, and even the dimensions of the city's temples. These aren't vague mythic flourishes, they're the kind of specifics that make archaeologists perk up. If Atlantis was pure fiction, why include such measurable, verifiable elements? Unless, of course, Plato was blending truth with parable, using a real disaster as his canvas. This ambiguity has fueled countless theories, each more elaborate than the last. The most persistent ties Atlantis to the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. Around 1600 BCE, an eruption 50 times more powerful than Krakatoa obliterated the Minoan settlement of Akrotiri, a sophisticated Bronze Age society with multi-story buildings, advanced drainage systems, and vivid frescoes. The parallels are striking: a sudden cataclysm, a maritime empire swallowed by the sea. But here's the problem: Akrotiri, while buried under ash, wasn't submerged. The Minoans also lacked the militaristic bent Plato ascribed to Atlantis. It's a compelling mirror, but a cracked one. Then there's the Azores hypothesis. Satellite scans have revealed strange, geometric structures on the ocean floor near these mid-Atlantic islands, lines and angles too precise to dismiss as natural formations. Proponents argue these could be Atlantis's drowned ruins, especially since Plato placed the city beyond Gibraltar. But oceanography throws cold water on the idea. The Azores sit on the mid-Atlantic ridge, where tectonic activity would have swallowed a landmass the size of Atlantis long before human civilization began. Even if a fragment survived, the depth over 2 miles down makes excavation nearly impossible with current technology. So what would it take to prove Atlantis existed? First, we'd need physical evidence matching Plato's descriptions. Artifacts with metallurgy unlike anything from known ancient cultures, architecture featuring those iconic concentric rings, or records in a language that predates Linear B. Second, we'd need geological proof of a catastrophic subsidence in the Mediterranean or Atlantic within the last 12,000 years, something beyond debate. So far, neither has surfaced, yet the search continues, driven by something deeper than academic curiosity. Atlantis isn't just a lost city, it's a metaphor. For some, it represents a golden age of human achievement, a reminder that even the grandest civilizations can fall. For others, it's a puzzle waiting to be solved, a challenge to our assumptions about history's boundaries. And maybe that's why we'll never stop looking. Whether as myth or buried ruin, Atlantis forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the thrilling possibility that the past still holds surprises vast enough to rewrite everything. The haunting strains of Nearer, My God, to the echoed across the icy Atlantic on the night of April 14, 1912, a final act of courage from Wallace Hartley and his 8-piece orchestra as the Titanic slipped beneath the waves. Hartley, the ship's bandleader, famously assured his musicians, "Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight." His violin, cradled against his chest as the water rose, became a symbol of dignity in the face of disaster. But what happened to that instrument after Hartley's body was recovered 10 days later? The violin still strapped to him in its leather case. For decades, its fate was a mystery as deep as the wreck itself, until a chance discovery in an English attic rewrote the story. When Hartley's personal effects were returned to his grieving fiancée, Maria Robinson, the violin wasn't listed among them. Most historians assumed it had been lost to the ocean or buried with him. But in 2006, a handwritten letter surfaced in Robinson's family archive, dated May 1912, thanking the White Star Line for returning "My dear Wallace's violin." This single sentence sparked a forensic quest. 7 years later, after painstaking authentication involving tree ring dating to confirm the wood's age, microscopic analysis of saltwater corrosion matching Titanic's wreck site, and even traces of marine bacteria unique to the North Atlantic, experts made an astonishing declaration: the violin was real. What makes this relic so extraordinary isn't just its survival, it's the silent story it carries. The instrument's back bears a silver plaque engraved by Maria herself, "For Wallace on our engagement." Love, Maria, This intimate detail transforms it from a historical artifact into a love letter frozen in time. Conservators found cracks repaired with glue mixed with black powder, likely done by Hartley himself during the voyage, evidence of a working musician's practicality. Even the case tells a tale. Its leather, stained by saltwater and oil from the sinking ship, still carries the faint scent of the sea. The violin's rediscovery forced historians to revisit the disaster's human toll. Hartley's decision to play wasn't just bravery, it was a calculated act of comfort. Survivors described the music slowing panic, giving passengers precious moments to secure lifeboats. That his instrument endured against all odds feels like a rebuttal to the chaos of that night, a fragile object outliving steel hulls and human hubris. Today, displayed at Titanic museums under controlled lighting, the violin isn't merely an exhibit. It's a bridge between the living and the lost, its silent strings still humming with the weight of 1,500 souls who never made it home. While the original Amber Room's fate remains shrouded in mystery, whispers persist of a second, even grander masterpiece, one that may never have seen the light of day. Historians digging through long-forgotten Prussian archives uncovered cryptic blueprints and correspondence suggesting that in 1742, as Russia's Catherine I admired her newly installed Amber Room, craftsmen in Königsberg were already at work on its twin. Commissioned by Frederick the Great as a gift for his Sanssouci palace, this rumored second chamber was said to feature not just amber, but also embedded diamonds and sapphires, designed to outshine even the original. But here's where the trail goes cold. No inventory lists it, no visitor's diary describes it, and no war record confirms its destruction. So where did it go? Some argue the project was abandoned mid-construction, its panels dismantled and repurposed when Frederick redirected funds to his military campaigns. Others believe it was completed in secret, then hidden away during the 7 Years' War to prevent its capture. The most tantalizing theory ties it to the same Nazi looters who stole the original Amber Room. In 1945, Soviet troops storming Königsberg Castle reported a sealed vault behind the wine cellar, one that was emptied before they could breach it. Could it have held the twin smuggled out in the war's final days? In the 1970s, a retired East German stonemason came forward with a bizarre claim. While restoring a Bavarian castle, he discovered a false wall concealing crates of golden resin panels. Authorities dismissed him as a fantasist, but when researchers followed up in the 90s, they found the castle's lower levels mysteriously flooded, rendering exploration impossible. The truth may lie somewhere between myth and meticulous German record-keeping. Frederick was notorious for documenting every expenditure, yet no ledger entries match the materials needed for such an ambitious project. Unless, of course, it was funded through shadow budgets, a practice common among European royals for sensitive ventures. Recent LiDAR scans of Sanssouci's grounds revealed anomalies beneath the new palace gardens, prompting speculation of a buried workshop or storage chamber. But without excavation permits, the scans remain tantalizingly unresolved. Whether lost, destroyed, or never truly existed, the twin Amber Room embodies history's most seductive question. What if its legend persists because it speaks to our hunger for undiscovered beauty? The idea that somewhere, behind a false wall or beneath centuries of dirt, a masterpiece might still wait, perfect and untouched, for the right moment to shine again. Until then, it lingers as a ghostly echo of its vanished sibling, a reminder that some treasures aren't just lost, but perhaps were never ours to find in the first place. For over 500 years, one of England's most infamous kings existed only in whispers and warnings. His body vanished, his legacy left to the mercy of Tudor historians. Richard III's death at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485 marked the end of the Plantagenet line, but the mystery of his missing bones would outlive dynasties. After the battle, his corpse was paraded through Leicester, then unceremoniously buried at Greyfriars Church. Yet when Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries 50 years later, the king's grave was deliberately targeted, an act of posthumous vengeance against a man Shakespeare would later paint as a hunchbacked monster. The friary was demolished, the land sold off, and Richard's resting place faded into rumor. Theories about his remains spiraled into folklore. Some claimed vengeful townsmen dug up the body and threw it into the River Soar, ensuring no shrine could rally Yorkist loyalists. Others insisted secret Catholic sympathizers reburied him in an unmarked grave, hiding the last Plantagenet from Tudor wrath. Even the church's precise location was forgotten, buried beneath centuries of urban development until a team of archaeologists, armed with old maps and ground-penetrating radar, began digging beneath a Leicester parking lot in 2012. What they found would rewrite the book on medieval history, not just the king's skeleton, but proof that centuries of propaganda had lied. Richard's bones told a starkly different story from Shakespeare's caricature. His spine showed severe scoliosis, yes, but no withered arm, no cloven hoof. Forensic reconstruction revealed a man who'd lived with chronic pain yet still fought ferociously in armor. The skull's wounds matched contemporary accounts of his brutal death, cleaved by halberds, humiliated even in demise. But the real shock came when DNA testing connected him to living descendants, confirming the line's survival in ways genealogists never expected. This wasn't just a skeleton, it was a key to England's genetic past. The rediscovery forced historians to confront centuries of Tudor spin. Suddenly, records of Richard's piety and legal reforms carried new weight against the usurper narrative. Even the fate of the princes in the tower, long pinned on him, came under fresh scrutiny. Here, in a Leicester car park, was proof that history isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes it's buried beneath them, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Richard's bones didn't just solve a cold case, they resurrected a king, letting his remains testify where chronicles could not. Today, reburied in Leicester Cathedral, his tomb forces us to ask, how many other monsters of history are just shadows, their truth still lost beneath our feet? When we gaze at the Great Pyramid of Giza today, we see an empty tomb, a hollowed-out monument stripped of its original grandeur. But the stripped-down chambers we walk through were once a pharaoh's treasure vault beyond imagination. Ancient Greek historian Herodotus claimed Khufu's pyramid was filled with riches beyond counting, while Arab chronicler al-Makrizi wrote of cursed golden statues and jewel-lined passageways. So where did it all go? The truth is, tomb robbers were at work within centuries, perhaps even decades of Khufu's burial, looting with an efficiency that would put modern heist crews to shame. The pyramid's original inventory would have been a royal accounting of the afterlife's necessities. Gemstone-encrusted sarcophagi, alabaster jars filled with precious oils, golden figurines meant to serve the pharaoh in the next world, all meticulously logged, then sealed away. Even the walls likely glittered with sheets of electrum, a gold-silver alloy that reflected torchlight like liquid sun. But the real mystery isn't just what was taken, it's what might still remain hidden. The pyramid's architecture is riddled with blind passages and sealed shafts, some too narrow for human passage. In 2017, muon radiography scans revealed a hidden void above the Grand Gallery, 30 meters long, a space no known corridor accesses. Could this be one of Khufu's legendary silent chambers, described in ancient texts as repositories for his most sacred relics? Then there are the persistent legends of mechanical traps. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote of ingenious devices designed to crush or entomb thieves, while Arabic accounts speak of dropping sand traps and pivoting stone blocks. Modern engineers have confirmed the pyramid's inner passages align with precise astronomical events, suggesting moving parts could have been triggered by celestial timings. The most chilling clue, deep within the subterranean chamber, archaeologists found a vertical shaft ending abruptly in bedrock as if something or someone had once plunged into darkness. What makes this loss so profound is its scale. Unlike Tutankhamun's tomb, a minor king's stash, Khufu's pyramid, represented the accumulated wealth of Egypt's golden age. Each stolen artifact wasn't just a museum piece, it was a coded message about power, cosmology, and the pharaoh's divine right. The missing golden capstone alone, said to have once gleamed at the pyramid's peak, symbolized the connection between earthly rule and celestial order. Today's high-tech scans hint that the pyramid still guards puzzles we've yet to crack. Robotic probes have found miniature copper handles embedded in narrow shafts. Could these be the remnants of an ancient locking mechanism? Thermal imaging reveals temperature anomalies behind certain walls, suggesting concealed cavities. Every new discovery raises more questions than answers, a reminder that Khufu's greatest treasure might not be gold, but the realization that after 4,000 years, his pyramid still hasn't given up all its secrets. The silent stones whisper, "Keep looking." By the spring of 1865, the Confederate States of America were crumbling, but their treasury was anything but empty. As Union forces closed in on Richmond, Virginia, Jefferson Davis and his cabinet fled south by train, reportedly carrying gold and silver worth millions in today's currency. This wasn't just government funds, it included looted banks, private donations, even payroll for scattered Confederate troops. Then, somewhere between Danville, Virginia, and Washington, Georgia, the money vanished. Some say it was buried in the dead of night. Others insist it was stolen by renegade soldiers or sunk in a river. What's certain is that the missing Confederate gold became the ultimate historical get-rich-quick scheme, one that's lured treasure hunters for over a century and a half with whispers of coded maps, ghostly guardians, and blood-stained fortunes. The last official sighting came in May 1865, when Confederate treasurer John Hendley loaded iron-strapped wooden crates onto wagons near the Savannah River. Union cavalry intercepted the group, seizing around $150,000, but eyewitnesses claimed that was barely a fraction of the original haul. The rest seemed to dissolve into thin air. Local legends quickly filled the void. In Wilkes County, Georgia, farmers swore they saw Confederate officers burying heavy chests under cover of darkness, their lanterns casting long shadows across abandoned plantations. Near Walhalla, South Carolina, rumors swirled of gold-laden wagons disappearing into the Blue Ridge foothills, never to emerge. Even the Great Dismal Swamp along the Virginia-North Carolina border earned its name in treasure lore, with stories of crates swallowed by quicksand, guarded now by spectral sentinels who hum Dixie to warn off trespassers. Modern searchers have turned these folktales into forensic quests. In 2015, a team using ground-penetrating radar claimed to detect metallic anomalies beneath a Georgia churchyard, until historians pointed out the site was a Union camp in 1865, making it an unlikely hiding spot for Confederate loyalists. More compelling is the case of the Beale treasure, a cipher supposedly leading to buried Confederate gold in Bedford County, Virginia. Though most cryptographers dismiss it as a 19th century hoax, that hasn't stopped enthusiasts from combing the countryside with shovels and metal detectors. Then there's the darker theory that much of the gold wasn't hidden at all, but laundered through European banks to fund the Lost Cause mythology and early Ku Klux Klan activities. Secret ledgers from New Orleans banking houses suggest some bullion made it to England, where it was melted down and sold to finance Confederate exile colonies in Brazil. The most haunting twist, this isn't just a hunt for riches, it's a reckoning with history's unfinished business. If found, the gold could settle lingering questions about the Confederacy's final days. Were desperate officers trying to preserve their nation's wealth for a future rebellion, as some Southern nationalist groups still claim? Or was it pillaged by individuals, fueling post-war outlaw legends like Jesse James? The money itself carries ghosts. Much of it was minted from Mexican silver and recast with the Confederate seal, a bitter irony for a government that fought to preserve slavery while relying on foreign metals to back its currency. Every few years, another discovery reignites the fever. In 2018, researchers scanning Lake Michigan claimed to spot wagon-sized objects near a known Confederate sympathizers' homestead, only to find Civil War-era artillery shells, not gold. 2 years later, a Virginia man sued his county for the right to dig under a public park, citing his great-grandfather's deathbed confession about buried bullion. The court dismissed his case, but the dream lives on, because here's the thing about lost treasure: it's never really about the gold. It's about the story, the what-if, the chance to touch a past that refuses to stay buried. And in the case of the Confederacy's missing fortune, that past is as tangled as kudzu, growing wilder with every telling, its roots reaching deep into the soil of myth and memory. Think of the greatest performances you've ever seen on screen. Now imagine 90% of them have vanished forever. That's the haunting reality of silent cinema. Between the 1890s and the late 1920s, thousands of films flickered to life, only to dissolve into dust, flames, or indifference. The most notorious loss, London After Midnight, starring the man of 1,000 faces himself, Lon Chaney. This 1927 horror masterpiece featured Chaney as a hypnotic, sharp-toothed detective in one of his most grotesque and mesmerizing roles. When the last known print burned in a 1965 MGM vault fire, it became the holy grail of lost films, a ghost story about ghost stories. Yet London After Midnight is just the tip of the iceberg. Studios saw early films as disposable, recycling silver nitrate stock for its scrap value or clearing vaults for newer releases. Of the nearly 11,000 silent features made in America alone, barely 20% survive intact. Some were lost to neglect, their flammable reels crumbling into powder. Others met deliberate destruction, like the infamous Fox Studios warehouse fire of 1937, which erased Clara Bow's Get Your Man and John Ford's Upstream in a single blaze. Even more tragic are the films we know existed only through still photographs or gossip columnist mentions reels that might have contained Buster Keaton's unreleased stunts or Gloria Swanson's boldest pre-code performances. But amid the loss, there are flickers of hope. In 2015, a collector stumbled upon a nitrate print of the 1923 The White Shadow, directed by a young Alfred Hitchcock in a New Zealand shed. Then there's the miraculous case of Metropolis, Fritz Lang's sci-fi epic. For decades, the film existed only in butchered cuts until 2008, when archivists discovered a nearly complete version in Buenos Aires, hidden in a museum's dusty basement. These discoveries prove that legendary films aren't always gone. Sometimes they're just sleeping, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Today's digital restorers wield tools their predecessors couldn't dream of. Color tints are recreated using AI analysis of surviving production notes. Missing scenes are reconstructed from continuity scripts or publicity stills, with algorithms filling in motion between frames. The Library of Congress's Most Wanted list prioritizes titles like Chaney's The Miracle Man and Mabel Normand's The Extra Girl, offering rewards for leads. Meanwhile, collectors scour rural theater basements and estate sales, knowing any rusty tin could hold a forgotten masterpiece. The silent era's ghosts aren't just lost art, they're missing pieces of cultural DNA. These films were the laboratories where close-ups, chase sequences, and visual effects were born. To watch one isn't just nostalgia, it's time travel. And while we may never see London After Midnight as audiences did in 1927, the hunt continues, because every recovered frame is a victory against oblivion, a whisper from the past saying, "I was here." Every vanished artifact we've explored today isn't just a missing object, it's a tear in the fabric of history, a question mark where there should be an answer. From the Ark of the Covenant's divine spark to the lonely whistle of the Walbazich ghost train, these 30 losses are more than just stories. They're the gaps in our collective memory, the blank pages in a book we'll never fully read. Think about what could have been. The amber room's golden glow still dazzling visitors, the lost plays of Sophocles reshaping modern theatre, or the Peking man fossils rewriting our understanding of human migration. These aren't just what-ifs, they're reminders of how fragile history truly is, how easily a single war, a natural disaster, or even human indifference can erase centuries of brilliance. But here's the beautiful paradox. The very fact these mysteries endure means they're still alive. Every theory, every expedition, every late-night debate keeps them burning in our imagination. Maybe you're convinced the Knights Templar hid their treasure in a Portuguese chapel, or you suspect Richard III's missing crown lies beneath a Polish monastery. That's the magic of these stories. They're not just for historians. They're for anyone who's ever looked at an old map and wondered what's hidden here. So now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments which of these lost treasures haunts you the most. Is it the Florentine diamond, its golden facets possibly glittering in some anonymous vault? Or the Irish crown jewels, their theft still smelling of political betrayal? And here's a challenge. If you could bring back just one of these artifacts, knowing its discovery might rewrite textbooks or shatter myths, which would you choose? This isn't the end of the hunt, it's just the beginning. We've barely scratched the surface of history's unsolved riddles. From vanished civilizations to cryptic manuscripts waiting to be decoded, the past is packed with secrets still begging to be uncovered. So hit that subscribe button, because we're not done digging. The next mystery might be even stranger, even older, even closer to being solved, and who knows? Maybe the next breakthrough will come from someone watching right now, someone holding a clue they don't even realize they have. After all, history's greatest discoveries often start with a simple question: what if?